up at Renaissance. So I came to Hong Kong in 1999. I came in March 1999 because my then fiance, who's now my husband, was asked to join a company in Asia, actually in Guangzhou. But I didn't want to go to Guangzhou, so I thought, right, I'll go to Hong Kong, you go to Guangzhou, and we'll meet up on weekends. And I didn't come with a job. I think unlike most teachers in Hong Kong, I didn't come with a job at all, and I really didn't know what to expect or what was happening. And so I just pursued work when I got here. I worked in a tutorial centre for a year, which was an amazing learning curve for me, actually. It was fantastic because I was teaching local Hong Kong children. I was being outsourced to primary schools, and I was teaching local Hong Kong kids. And it was just such an amazing learning curve. And because I didn't have a lot of experience with EAL, for example. So really that set me up, I think, for success in the future. And so after spending a year in the tutorial centre, when I started looking for other teaching work, I had that great background. I applied for a job as an EAL teacher at Canadian Overseas International College. They were looking for an EAL teacher. And yeah, because of that 12 months in the tutorial centre, I obviously was able to convince them in the interview that I could do a good job. And then I'm not sure if you're aware, but so I spent a little over a year at COIC in Kowloon Tong, and then that school became bankrupt. So there was all drama and hoo-ha and craziness. The school shut down very, very suddenly. It literally overnight just shut down and declared itself bankrupt. So the kids had nowhere to go. The teachers had nowhere to go. Of course, the parents were very, very concerned. And it was all rather a debacle. And thankfully, within about a month of that happening, the EDB and ESF came together, made a plan and said, we will take you on. We will adopt you. You will become an ESF school. We'll put you in Cheung Sha Wan in the old Aussie International School building. And you just keep going, just continue. So yeah, we literally sort of picked up and started in a new campus in Cheung Sha Wan, became Pheonix International. Most of the COIC students did come over, and we became a through school, both primary and secondary. And there was Renaissance was always on the cards. So I think ESF had a very long-term plan that they were going to build this fantastic new private independent school in Ma On Shan. And so I think, you know, when we started Pheonix, ESF knew that that would be a good sort of precursor to Renaissance. So I was at COIC, then I was at Pheonix, and I'm still around. And yeah, then I moved over to Ma On Shan to be at Renaissance. So I've been there since day one, and Renaissance started in 2006, I believe. So I've been there since 2006. And I think there's two of us left from COIC. If my memory serves me correctly, I think there's 2 or 3 staff members currently at Renaissance who are from the original COIC. So we go back a long way.
That's really interesting. This is my first time hearing this story.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It was all very dramatic. Like, I was interviewed on the news, and I remember television footage of the business manager being chased down the street by television cameras and paparazzi, and it was all pretty crazy and, you know, scary, but thankfully a very, you know, happy ending. Yeah.
I had no idea about this either. That's
really?
Fascinating. Yeah, I knew that it used to be Pheonix International, but I had and then the Canadian school before that, but I had no idea that's how it all evolved. So that's fascinating.
It really is. I think it's one of the few, if not the only, sort of international school that, you know, sort of became bankrupt, but it was just so sudden. I think the miracle was, if my memory serves me correctly, the miracle was that I honestly think within 4 to 5 weeks, we were all back in a classroom teaching and learning at the new campus in Cheung Sha Wan under the ESF umbrella. I mean,
That's crazy. That's crazy.
That's really quite something, yeah. So, yeah. But as I said, happy endings, and I'm still there. So,
I did unmuted myself. And can you tell us more about your teaching at Renaissance College? What did you teach, and which years did you teach in RC?
Sure. So my very, very first year there, I was a year 5 classroom teacher. So I had my own class in year 5. And at that stage, I was actually part-time, which I'm sure you're aware is a very rare thing as well in ESF. So I was part-time because I had a very young baby, a 1-year-old. So I was actually job sharing in that very first year. So I was 3 days a week as a year 5 classroom teacher, and then one of my colleagues would do the other 2 days. The following year, I was asked if I would be happy to move into EAL, teaching English as an additional language, because they felt that was more appropriate for my timetable. And of course I said, yeah, great, I'm happy to do that. So then I became an EAL teacher for many years, working with some fantastic colleagues, and I was still part-time. Then EAL combined with learning support, so we became one big happy family. So suddenly I had to learn an awful lot about learning support and special needs. I had to go to lots and lots of workshops and seminars and conferences to really get my head around that. And you know, it was a whole new learning curve for me, which was terrific, and I really enjoyed it and still do. And so I've worked from, I think a few years ago, I was working, we had a vertical model, and I was working from year 1 up to year 6, and I was doing all sorts of different things within the learning support role. And now we're working at a horizontal model. So that means that last academic year, I was just in year 2. I spent the whole year working with year 2. And prior to that, I'd actually been with that same cohort in year 1. So I just worked exclusively in year 1. Then I worked in year 2 with the same group of kids. And fortunately for me, because I absolutely love these children, I am moving up with them this coming academic year. I'm moving up with them into year 3. So I will still be doing learning support for them. Yeah, and so that decision was made so the students would have consistency, and so that we as learning support teachers could get to know the students really, really well, and follow them through several years to give them really genuine level of support. So that's what I'm doing now. But I've done all sorts of things. In Pheonix, I was actually a secondary English, geography, social studies teacher. Yeah, that's what I was doing in Pheonix, and I had to become an expert on Canadian geography and history. And what was that? COIC. Oh yeah, I had my own class in COIC. I had my own class, and then became a learning support teacher. So I've sort of been all over the place. And interestingly, I'm actually, my training, if I go all the way back many, many, many years ago to Melbourne University, my training is actually secondary English and drama. So that's what that was my teaching training. And I've done a bit of that, but it's not what I'm doing right now. And I find that really interesting. I've sort of come full circle.
I'm not surprised about the drama background, because I feel like you always have this very creative flair about you. I think that really permeates everything that you do.
I think it does, and I think that's why I'm really loving teaching the early years now, because yes, it does help to have a dramatic flair when you're working with early years students. So yes, I think I've definitely found my people.
Great. here's another question. What's the common misconception from students about you?
I think the common misconception about me is similar to a lot of teachers who I find that often when you're a teacher, people think you know everything about everything. So students might ask me a question about, you know, ancient Greece or science or Pythagoras theorem or something, and I'll say, sorry, I don't know the answer to that, actually, I'm not sure. And they'll say, but you're a teacher, as though we're sort of all-knowing, all-powerful, this fountain of knowledge that's not exhaustive. And they seem quite surprised when you say, I don't actually know the answer to that, but, you know, we can try and find out. I mean, the same thing happens to me sometimes, you know, if I go out for dinner with people I don't know particularly well, and the bill comes and they'll say, oh, can you divide the bill and work out how much we owe? And I'll, no. And they'll say, but you're a teacher. And I say, yeah, but I'm not a math teacher. So I know a lot about a lot of things, but there are some areas that I really don't know much about at all. But, you know, people have that idea of you when you're a teacher, that you know everything about everything. And we're just human like everybody else. We have our areas of expertise, but we don't know everything. So, yeah.
Good. What's your memorable moments at Renaissance College, and or maybe Pheonix or the Canadian school?
I think my most memorable moments are some of the EOTC experiences. I think you know, going on school camps and taking students away for camp. I think it's just amazing to have students and to engage with students outside the classroom. So field trips and camps. I think one of my fondest memories was during Pheonix days. I took, myself and a couple of other staff took a group of students to Sichuan province in China to see the pandas. And we went to the panda reserve, and just to be spending, you know, a week in nature, observing pandas and learning about pandas and being with pandas. They're just the most incredible creatures. And we were terribly lucky because back in those days, and I'm not sure if this is allowed now, but back then, if you made a donation to the panda reserve, you were actually allowed to hold a baby panda for about 30 seconds. It was really fast, but I mean, and I was fortunate enough, along with some students, to be allowed to do that. So I actually got to hold sort of a 4-month, 5-month-old baby panda in my arms, which was really a phenomenal experience. And there was another point where one of the pandas had just given birth a week prior. So we were able to get up really close and personal behind perspex and watch a mother panda with her teeny tiny week-old little baby panda sort of nursing and crawling all over her. And I mean, to see that, you know, about a meter away, again, was definitely one of the most memorable things I've ever experienced in my life. I mean, it was phenomenal, and it was amazing for the kids, and it was amazing for us. So that was terrific. I've spent so many camps at Treasure Island in Poyo Beach. I can't tell you how many times I went to Treasure Island, but absolutely adored that all the time. I mean, once again, seeing kids in nature, seeing them outside the classroom, you know, challenging one another and just having to cope with the experiences outside their own comfort zone. Just, you know, waking up in a tent or in a dorm, stepping outside and hearing the crash of waves, and spending, you know, 24/7 really in a natural environment, watching the students play on the beach and just having a ball and just running around and being kids, being free and, you know, having a blast. I think there's nothing more amazing and delightful than that, really. And the academic year just gone, we had a day at forest school where we took the year 2 students to the forest school. And it was really incredible again to see that some students who inside a classroom could be quite withdrawn or introverted or quiet or lacking confidence put them out there in nature with, you know, wood and blocks and dirt, and just see what they're capable of. And it's really eye-opening. It's absolutely fantastic. I love seeing a different side of students in those different environments. Those experiences are just invaluable. So I think, yeah, for me, a lot of those are my most memorable experiences, definitely. And then, of course, I have to be honest and say I also have a son at Renaissance College. So as a mother, some of my most memorable experiences, of course, are, you know, relate to my son. So, you know, I'll never forget his very, very first day in year one, you know, heading off with the classroom teacher and the EA, and he was sobbing and looking back at me like it was the end of the world. I mean, you don't forget those moments. And also, you know, just some of his, you know, school assemblies or school productions or musicals that he's been a part of course, you know, they are very special to me as well. So it's a combination of the professional and the personal, I suppose.
Good. How about any memorable students or staff? Of course, your son will be one of those, I suppose.
Yes, definitely. I mean, there are so many memorable students. I won't name names, obviously, but you know, there are some students that you hold dear to your heart because they're, you know, funny, really clever, creative, interesting. Some students you remember because they made your life very challenging. I have some of those. But yeah, I mean, I think every year you probably come away with a couple of students or a handful of students that have really touched you or meant something to you. And for me, it's you know, it's the joy of, often it's the joy of watching students who have struggled at something or found something really difficult or challenging. For example, reading. You know, when I see a student who's really, really struggled at reading or literacy and then persevered and worked hard, and suddenly you sort of see them blossoming and you hand them a book and they can actually read it and they can remember all the words that they've learned and they can talk to you about it and answer your questions. For me, there's really no greater joy than that, to be honest, as a teacher. Just watching a kid thrive and blossom and become successful. You know, some of those students are really the ones that I will always, you know, hold very, very dear in my heart. There's a particular staff member who, again, I won't name names, but he does stand out because we used to and still do at Renaissance, we have something called Friday morning briefing. And it's basically, you know, a 20-minute meeting amongst the staff where we hear important messages and relay important information about students and school events and staff. And there was a particular teacher who used to finish Friday morning briefings with a joke to lighten the mood. But his jokes were quite controversial. So a lot of people didn't abide by his sense of humour and didn't really like his jokes. And other people thought they were funny and interesting and clever. But my favourite part was just watching people's faces. So we'd have our Friday morning briefing and then the principal would say, all right, any other comments or questions or information? And this particular individual would say, I've got a joke. And half the staff would say, oh, no. And the other half would look, oh, yeah, great, go for it. And I don't think I even listened to half the jokes. I was so busy watching people's faces to see their reactions that that was always the highlight of my Friday morning briefings. So that's a staff member who definitely stands out in my mind.
Great. Thank you very much for your sharing. For the remaining time, we'll leave the space for the remaining alumni to ask you questions. What questions do you have for Miss Owen?
I actually had a quick question, if you don't mind. How heavy is a baby panda when you hold it?
Well, that's a good question. We were sitting down, so they were very, very, very strict about how we were allowed to do this. We had to sit in a particular chair, and then the person who worked at the sanctuary, who was, you know, in sort of surgical gear and gloves and a mask, would pick up the panda and hand it to us. So we were sitting, so the panda was actually on my knee. So I couldn't really tell you how heavy, but they're terribly solid. You know how you think they're going to be all squishy and soft like a plushie, and that you'll sort of squeeze it, and they're really hard and solid. That's the memory that I have of thinking, oh, you're so hard and solid and strong and muscly, rather than like a plushie, because you think it's going to be like a plushie, and it's nothing like a plushie. But yeah, they are, yes, adorable. So I'm sorry I can't answer that question, Liz.
I think my daughter Robin is at the panda stage right now. Terribly heavy and dense, but also looking very squishy.
Yeah.
We have a question from Jamie.
Yeah.
She asked, how has RC changed over the years?
Ooh, it feels a lot bigger than when I started. So when I first started, obviously we had far fewer students than we do now. I think we have over 2,000 students now, if I'm right, Liz.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When we first started, I believe we had 900 and something students. So it was a lot smaller. So for example, now in the primary school, there are 6 classes at each level. So, you know, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, etc. We have 6 full, very, very full classrooms. When I first started as a year 5 teacher, I think we only had maybe 4 or 5 classes in each year level. We certainly didn't have 6. So there were a couple of spare classrooms in each year level, which are now completely full, obviously. So we had fewer staff. The staff, we had a staff room that we actually utilised and used. So I actually did spend a lot more time with secondary teachers than I do now, for example, because we actually had a central staff room that we would go to and, you know, have a coffee, eat lunch. But gradually that waned because people just started sticking in their own departments or in their own hub area. I think partly because the school's so big. So, for example, for me to walk from where I now teach in the primary school up to the staff room, I mean, that's a good 5-minute walk each way. And so I think gradually people just started gravitating more towards their own departments or their own hub areas. That's changed. But yes, it's definitely got much bigger. Facilities have improved significantly. I remember the very first couple of months when the school began, and we had so much trouble with, you know, printers, photocopiers, nothing seemed to work. I mean, obviously it was all brand new and it was starting out and, you know, nothing was quite right. Facilities we have now, such as, you know, the Red Door Centre, which is phenomenal, the SPC building, which now houses all the, you know, the beautiful Chinese classrooms. I mean, for years and years and years, those Chinese teachers did not have their own classroom, and they would have to carry all their books from classroom to classroom to classroom, lugging them around. It was really difficult and tiring for them. So it's fantastic that they've got their own beautiful classrooms. You know, we now have dedicated primary art classrooms in the primary school. The art classroom, for those who remember, used to be in the secondary building. So you'd have these tiny little children in groups being taken upstairs and into lifts up and over and round to get themselves into the secondary, to the art room there. So again, you know, it's wonderful that we have these amazing new facilities. And I also think educationally, it's definitely changed. When I look at the emphasis now on things like, you know, coding, robotics, makers education. I mean, I know, for example, in year 1 and 2 now, the children spend so much time in creative play, creative learning, creative building, which I don't think, looking back when my son was there, they didn't have that emphasis on things like Makers Ed. where you learn from doing. I mean, of course, like, you know, my son had a terrific education, and it was wonderful, but the fact that they're constantly changing and evolving and creating new places and spaces and stimulus for all the children, right from, you know, the young ones all the way through, I think it's fantastic. It's a school that never stops changing with the times and never stops evolving, and yeah, it's phenomenal. Sometimes I think, whoa, and sometimes you know, my son will have particular assignments to do, and I think, that is so hard. That's, you know, I didn't do that sort of stuff until I was at uni. So yeah, they're definitely pushing them in all sorts of really interesting directions. But from my perspective as an early years teacher where I am now, I really love the emphasis on learning through play, and learning through making and learning through discovering. And I think that's definitely something that's changed for the better, and it's fantastic.
And we have a question from Sam. What's your favorite room on campus?
I don't think I have a favorite room. I was thinking about this before. I think my favorite place is really dependent on my role at a given time. So as I mentioned, the last academic year just gone, I've been a learning support teacher in Year 2. So I spend most of my time in the Year 2 hub. I have a little spot where I can work one-to-one with students or in small groups. And I do have a classroom space that I'm able to use sometimes and take groups up there. But the bulk of my time is spent in the Year 2 hub. So for now, I would have to say, well, that's my favourite place, because it's a very dynamic, amazing, creative place. You know, when you've got well over 100 6- and 7-year-olds who are making, playing, creating, drawing, gluing, sticking, role playing, dressing in costumes. I mean, it's a pretty dynamic environment, and I'm lucky to spend so much time in that environment and witness all of this. So, you know, I see kids being dogs and cats. I see kids, you know, being mummies and daddies. I see kids being pirates and turning a chair into a pirate ship. You know, I have dozens of children every single day saying, "Hi, Miss Owen," and giving me a smile. I mean, what a place to work, you know. So that's an environment that just brings me an awful lot of joy. And I see a lot of creativity, you know, kids building telescopes out of cardboard boxes and tissue boxes. Miss Owen, look at my telescope. I'm going to take it home and look at the stars. Or, you know, Miss Owen, look at my princess. And someone's made a princess from, you know, popsicle sticks and pipe cleaners, you know. So that would be my, I mean, as of now, that would be my favorite space, just because I have spent so much time there, and it's a happy, joyous, creative, wonderful place to be.
Thank you. Another question from Rachel. What values has RC maintained from the beginning?
What values has it maintained? I think definitely putting students first, always. I think since its inception, the overriding goal and desire for all the staff certainly has been to have students who are happy, healthy, well-balanced, successful, global citizens, you know. I think that's never changed. I mean, if I look back on the first group of staff who I started off with way back then, it was very much about the kids, and it is still very much about the kids. And you know, the staff at that school are incredible. I mean, I have worked with so many phenomenal colleagues who bend over backwards and will go far and above, really, their duty to ensure that children are happy, healthy, learning, growing, developing. Yeah, that's never changed, and it really is a credit to the teachers there. And I hope that never does change. Yeah, I'd say that's the overriding value, actually. Yeah.
Thank you. And a question from Casey. What's your favorite event that RC hosts during the school year?
Ooh, well, again, I'm going to wear the mother hat here, if that's okay. My son is a drama in secondary drama, and so he's had a few. Well, he takes part in the annual school theatre show or the annual school musical. So, as a mother, I am biased. So obviously that's something that I absolutely love to witness and experience. And, I could probably recite all his lines for you, but I won't. So that's terrific because we have an incredible performing arts program at Renaissance. I mean, it is just spectacular. I couldn't say enough about how professional and amazing it is. But we have some other events that I love. In the primary school, we have something called Arts Fest or House Fest, where the children they divide it between upper primary and lower primary. So it's either years 1, 2, and 3, or at another time of the year, years 4, 5, and 6, and they will spend 1 or 2 days just immersed in all sorts of brilliant activities involving art, craft, drama, dance, music, play, and those days are just fantastic. And often they culminate in a huge water fight. So the kids are asked to bring in a change of clothes, maybe a bathing costume or a t-shirt and shorts, and it's sort of, kids versus teachers, and the teachers run around with huge water guns and buckets and, try to get the kids as wet as possible while the kids are trying to get the teachers back. And if ever you want to see hilarity in motion, it's that water fight. I mean, it's just brilliant, and it's a magnificent way to sort of cap off the day or the couple of days, and everyone's smiling and everyone's laughing and everyone's happy and everyone's soaking wet, and it's joyous. It's just fantastic. So they are also very, very memorable. And of course, I can't answer this question without talking about Book Week and Dress Up Day, which is probably, one of my favorites because I love a good costume. So, Book Week's always fantastic. And I in the weeks preceding Book Week, I'm always checking my emails to find what's the theme this year? What's the theme? Because I have to start thinking about my costume. So, yeah, I do love Book Week and Character Day as well. So, actually, lots of great days happen at that school. It's a lot of great days.
Do we have other questions for Ms. Owen? If not, we'll end this live chat with the last question from me. What would you say to the graduating students?
I think I would say to the graduating students that always remember that really the world is your oyster, and there are just so many options and so many choices, especially now, in this sort of the way that we live. And these students graduating have so much amazing experience and exposure. They're so fortunate. When I say the world is your oyster and you have choices, what I'm saying is don't ever feel trapped or limited by a choice that you've made, because even if it's the wrong one, there are alternatives and you just need to seek them out and find them. So, for example, if you enroll in a course and you get through your first 3 months or your first 6 months of, uni or college, and you think, oh my goodness, this is not working for me, this is not fulfilling me, I can't see myself doing this in the future, I've made a terrible decision, don't feel like you've got to stick it out because you've already made that choice. Look around and find an alternative, find something that is going to fulfill you and make you happy. Similarly, if you find yourself in a job, a particular job in a particular industry or a particular company that's making you really miserable and unhappy, if it's not conducive to your mental health and well-being, don't feel trapped there. Don't think, well, this is it. I signed a contract, I'm stuck forever. fulfill your contract, but look around, find out what other avenues are out there, what other paths, what other options, because I think in this day and age, there's always something else. And, it's important to find fulfillment. You don't necessarily have to find a job that makes you want to, jump up and dance every morning when the alarm goes off, but you certainly need fulfillment, and you need to feel good about what you're doing, and you need to feel satisfied, and you need to feel happy. And I've done jobs in between teaching. I've done other jobs that were really demoralizing and pretty soul destroying. And you have to seek out other options, and you have to say to yourself, oh, this isn't good for me. So yeah, I would just say never feel trapped or limited by any of your previous choices. Always look forward to move on, and continue to grow, continue to learn, continue to develop in whatever field you're working in. Myself now, working in early childhood education is like a dream come true, but it's a dream I never even had. If someone had said to me 20 years ago, you are just going to love working with 5 and 6 year olds, I would have laughed. I had no idea about 5 or 6 year olds, or how to engage with them, or how to teach them. As I said, it wasn't my background, it wasn't my training. And now I honestly feel like I'm the happiest I've ever been in teaching. I found my people. And that took a really long time. So, you're never too old. You're never too old to find the place you really belong, and somewhere that, that makes you really fulfilled and happy. So always strive and always seek, and never settle if you're truly unhappy. Don't settle. Move on. Go for it.
Thank you very much for your words. This comes to the end of our live chat today. I'll put the recording on ESF Connect later, so that other alumni who couldn't attend this live chat now can also see the video. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Eva.
Thank you, Therese. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right.
Happy summer.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.